Hi, Shannon Lewis here from Panoptic Development. Today is the fourth and last in our video series going over the Panoptic development process. Today's video, we're going to discuss building of the web application, so the actual development of your web application. I hope you enjoy it. Thought it might be helpful to do a quick review before we get into today's video. In our first video, we reviewed requirements. Our second video, we discussed user stories. And in the third video, we went over the design process. Today's video, we're going to go over the process of actually building your web application. So through our other videos, we now have a backlog of features that development needs to work on. We got this through our user stories, through our feature set, as well as the design process. So we look through the backlog and we create a sprint that typically lasts 1 to 2 weeks. We like 2-week sprints, but occasionally we have to do 1-week sprints. We try to group similar features into the sprint if possible. And typically our first sprint is setting up the staging server and the production server so that we can start testing the application after every sprint. So development goes off and starts working on the features in the sprint. And with each feature, development builds an automated test associated with that feature. And the idea of this is we then have an automated test suite that we can run before we deploy to make sure everything's working. So once development is done and the test suite is run and everything looks good, we will deploy to the staging server. From here, testing starts. Even though we have automated testing, we still do manual testing because there's some things that the automated test just can't pick up. We encourage client feedback at this time. We really like clients to go onto the staging server and to start testing to make sure the features are working the way they expect them to. And while testing starts, development then starts a new cycle, a new sprint. So they're off working on the new sprint, adding new functionality. And the application is in a continuous state for testing. And that's really important for us because we think it's, as I said earlier, very important for the clients to be actively involved in the process of building their web application. So this really is an iterative approach. Development works on a sprint. Once the sprint's ready, it gets deployed to staging. We test it, and we encourage feedback from the customer as well as testers, and that feedback, any bugs or any changes or tweaks to the features, then go back into the backlog and they're addressed in additional sprints. And depending on the application needs, we deploy to production. Sometimes we'll deploy to production after every sprint. Sometimes we wait until halfway through the cycle or until the very end. It really depends on the requirements of the application. So for instance, if we were working on an application that really is in a maintenance mode, the application's in pretty good shape, we're just making some feature changes or some bug fixes, for that case we'll probably deploy to production after every sprint. But in the case of a new product, a greenfield app, we won't deploy until a minimum viable product is available. And at that point, it might make sense to deploy to production, but sometimes it makes sense not to, and we still just deploy to staging, and we wait to deploy to production until the very end. It depends on the application we're building as well as our client's needs. Hi, I hope that this video was helpful in explaining the development process. I also hope that it highlighted the importance of you, the client's participation during the entire process.